Did you in fact tell him that he would not see his kids for a couple of years?
Possibly.
Day 15 in the Wyndham Melly trial has been the most suspenseful day since the prosecutors brought in the gun reconstructive expert. The defense cross-examined Detective Moretti, and they brought up potential suspects in this trial that the lead detective failed to thoroughly investigate, showing a lack of due diligence, as well as proof that Detective Moretti threatened witnesses such as 100K Track, who is Melly's manager, as well as mentioning 100K Track's network, showing that Wyndham Melly, as a collective and as the group, of course, is making a lot of money, so him killing his friends, Melly, of course, would be stupid. They finally revisited the chilling self-incriminating admission of guilt by Melly, the "I did that" text message that he sent to another rapper, Peace Gambino. Now, one thing I want you to realize is how he spelled that, T-H-A-T, spelled in the message. Now, something as small as this will be an avenue of reasonable doubt, because for Melly's defense, this argument on the phone didn't belong to him.
This is coming from 9807, the phone.
I don't know which.
I'm going to tell you. Spelled on this, T-H-A-T, that. Correct?
Correct.
This is coming from the 9807 that the state has introduced thousands of pages indicating belongs, or it's a phone that Melly uses. Correct? Page 1 of defense exhibit coming from 9807. Will you tell the jury how he spells that?
That, D-A-T.
D-A-T. Page 2. Will you tell the jury how he spells that?
D-A-T.
D-A-T. Not T-H-A-T. D-A-T. Correct?
Right.
Page 3. Coming out of 9807. How does he spell that?
D-A-T.
So when Melly spells the word that, you want me to go through all 19 pages, or will you take my word that every time, coming out of 9807 that's attributed to this young man that's writing the message, he does not spell it T-H-A-T, but D-A-T. Would you like to look through them?
No, sir. You're asking me to explain that the one moment he decided to use proper grammar.
One moment. These phone messages that the state introduced sitting on this pages that we painfully went through, he spells it D-A-T, not T-H-A-T, except for this one occasion. Right?
Correct.
What a somewhat unusual, wouldn't you think?
The detective then talks about how the phone was moving near the scene of the crime and its whereabouts. However, Melly's attorney brought up before that the method that the police department is using isn't even used by the FBI, which is a more superior and a group that has 10 times the amount of resources than them. So what makes what you're doing reliable?
Mobile. Passing McDonald's. Mobile. After the shooting, after the murder, it's coming back east on Pine Boulevard. It's saying mobile. So we had video to corroborate that one little instance, that one little section of the law.
Are you aware that the FBI never, ever uses the label environment because they cannot attest to the reliability of that? You also use latitude and longitude coordinates.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware that the FBI does not rely upon the latitude and longitude when they determine where a phone is?
The latitude and longitude that comes into play on the true call data report of the cell phone. It's an estimate. The cell phone providers provide us an estimate where they believe the phone might be. Like we said before, it's not precise, but it's accurate.
Then they talk about the 3 people who were in the car driving to the hospital, Bortland, Sactus, and Juvie, and why he didn't question Wyndham Bortland, the driver, assuming that the one person that wasn't there was the shooter, basically Melly.
That there were 3 people in his car, correct?
Yes, sir.
In the front passenger seat was Anthony Williams,
Yes.
and sitting in the rear passenger seat was Christopher Thomas.
Yes.
Only those 3 people when the shooting occurred, correct?
Correct.
You learned that he lied to you about where the drive-by shooting was, correct?
Yes.
You went to, what, 3 different areas to look for evidence of the drive-by of Portland, what Portland Henry told you, correct?
Yes.
You learned at that time that at first he was labeled a victim, but that he now is lying to the police concerning the shooting of 2 individuals.
He was still listed as a victim that day. Even though we knew he was lying to us, but he was still considered a victim at that point.
You could have arrested him if you so chose for lying to the police, correct?
You're saying that you're arrested a potential victim of a violent crime on a misdemeanor?
Could you just answer my question? Could you have arrested him, yes or no?
Yes.
Interrogation of the defense, asking the lead detective why he didn't do a better job with his investigation, not leaving any stone unturned.
And you spoke to him for approximately an hour or 2.
An hour.
And he gave you address where he lives, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that address was 18521 Southwest 44th Street, Silver Lakes,
Yes, sir. No, Sunset Lakes.
Sunset Lakes. And he also tells you that Melly is a recording artist.
So now they bring up Jameson Francois, a 100K track, who is Melly's manager, generating over $60 million in a period of 30 months, which goes to show that the narrative that they're portraying of Melly wanting to kill his friends, that actually talked about in the last video, just go watch after, about how he killed his friends, showed an argument between him and Sack Chaser, really didn't hold up any weight, because if you're making $30 million off this group and maybe a few other artists, the dispute over money was no good. Like, they're making decent money. And anyone who's making $30 million or $16 million in a span of 30 months is well off.
And we learned from the testimony that $16 million went into Jameson Francois' bank account.
Over a 30-month period, yes.
Okay. So, and he was the business manager of this 19-year-old young man.
Yes.
You learned later, correct?
Yes.
A rather successful, would you say, recording artist.
I really don't understand the music business, or how the money's made, how it comes in.
I'd ask you to that. Someone who earns $16 million in 30 months legally is pretty successful, wouldn't you say?
Well, I don't, like I said before, that we could never determine the amount of money, what was, because Mr. Francois had other clients, so we could never isolate what specifically is made by one artist over another.
Okay.
We just knew the money was there.
You knew that the 2 victims, the driver of the car that lied to you, and Melly lived, and you had the address at the same house.
Yes.
You also learned about that time, and you mentioned it briefly, that a text message came out from a crucial almighty.
Yes.
And that text message was, we were just aiming at YNW, and it had a picture of him with a target, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mentioned how them as a group plan to sell the YNW brand for licensing for $500,000, where Melly was going to get $200K, Sachi was going to get $200K, and Juve would have got $100K. And basically, they believe that Melly wants to kill his friends so he can inherit all the $500,000, which honestly isn't that much money, but 2, they already had money from rapping. So, like I said, it's a lot of stuff that just seems like reaches, but there are points where it connects the dots.
When did you, since you knew this, on October 26th of 2018, when did you decide to talk to the David Hedgehead, crucial almighty, who said he shot at this young man inside a Jeep? What date?
I first did a search warrant into his social media account where the comments came from, which then we was able to determine a better picture of Mr. Hedgepeth was. So it was probably maybe 2 years later when we interviewed Mr. Hedgepeth.
2 years later, that would be in
20,
Yes, sir.
a year after this young man surrenders to you, to the police?
That day, but
February of 19. Would you agree it was 2 years after that?
yes, sir.
Then they brought up the potential witnesses to sway the jury and, of course, create reasonable doubt. They brought up how the crew got into a fight with someone named Bentley at a Walmart, and the police haven't even looked to, or they don't even know who the identity is of Bentley, showing that, hey, you have someone who got into a fight with someone, that actually something was stolen, and you didn't bother to investigate into this person, making people think that Melly was their sole guy from the start, and basically he was going to be their fall guy.
You also learned from Cortland Henry that they were having a problem with a guy named Bentley.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to label him as suspect number 2. Who is Bentley?
You never could identify him.
So last name unknown.
Correct.
You also learned that there was a problem at Walmart where they got jumped and I think a necklace or a bracelet was stolen.
A little pendant fell off one of them, yes.
Okay. Did you go to Walmart to investigate that?
No, sir.
I'm going to make him suspect number 3 so far.
Now they start to bring up everyone who was at the studio and who left that night.
By October 27th, you identified Cortland Henry, correct?
Yes, sir.
Anthony Williams,
Yes, sir.
Christopher Thomas,
Yes, sir.
Trevon Glass,
Yes, sir.
Melly,
Yes, sir.
I'm missing 3
Jacoby Mills and
Jacoby Mills,
Dontavius Withers
Dontavius Withers, and Adrian Davis.
Davis.
All 8 people that left the recording studio, and 2 had passed away, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you knew where all 8 of them were living, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was at the 18720, whatever that address I read off before.
The Sunset Lakes 184 Southwest 44th Street.
You had that address, correct?
Yes, sir.
So then they speak on the bloody car, and the defense brings up why they didn't search the house that the 8 friends were all living at, and Detective Moretti said how because basically they need a nexus, basically which is a link to the crime scene and the house, and they didn't have that, so they didn't bother going in the house and searching it.
And you had observed the bloody scene of inside the Jeep, correct?
Correct.
And you knew that Cortland Henry had lied to you.
Correct.
So you certainly, at that point, obtained a search warrant to look at that house to see if you could find any blood, any gun, or anything to tie up what happened in that car, correct?
There is no way we could have got a search warrant for that house because there was no nexus to the crime to the house. And I have to establish a nexus between the two or the judges will not sign the warrant.
Did you even try, sir, to get a search warrant and go in front of a judge and say, I got 8 people who left the studio. They all live in the same house. The driver of the vehicle we interviewed lied, and the inside of the Jeep is covered in blood, and we're looking for the gun or guns and the bloody clothes involved in this. Did you bother to do that, sir?
So like I said before, there was no connection between the house and the crime itself. Now,
The answer-
where we had blood, where we had evidence, where we had instruments of a crime, we did search warrants. Anytime we had a nexus between the two, we did a search warrant. We never had a nexus between the two. We even went to that house that day, knocked on the door, there was no one there.
You could have secured that house by officers standing in front of it.
One thing that was very shocking was Detective Moretti admitted to threatening the friends of Melly against defending him in any way and bringing up how HK Track would be deported back to Haiti if he supported him, which was nasty work.
Excuse me. Did you in fact threaten to have him be federally indicted? Yes or no?
Yes, because of gun sales.
Gun sales. Did you in fact tell him that he would not see his kids for a couple of years?
Possibly.
Well, may I approach?
Yes, sir. Same document?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Did you in fact tell him he would be deported to Haiti?
Yes.
Did you in fact tell him that despite the fact that he has lived in this country since he's been 5 years old, he would be deported to, these are his words, as a trained investigator, threatened Jameson Francois to be deported to Haiti, even though he's been in this country since 5 years?
Yes, sir.
Did you in fact threaten that he would not get fed and get any medicine in the Haitian jails?
I don't know about that conversation.
Do you think threatening a witness who tells you something that you don't like really gets to the truth?
Objection or irrelevance.
Sustained.
Did you in fact tell him that the jails are overcrowded, in referring to Haiti? It's disease-ridden, it's a, excuse my French, a shithole.
Irrelevant.
This trial just keeps on getting more crazy every week. It's like first, Melly was on the crime scene, and then his phone put him there, and now they're bringing detectives who showed that he must have been in the car from the way the bullets were shown. Then we have people before that who couldn't even recreate it because they didn't have a gun or the angle. And then we have basically detectives saying that they know he was at the car because of basically stuff that happened prior to this and the fight and the text messages leading to the tension. And a lot of it is all circumstantial because there's no gun and no video footage, which is something I say 1,000,000 times in these videos, but it is very true. Like, it's just like, all right, we assume he's in the spot. We saw him go to the spot when he left the studio. He wasn't there when the car got shot up, allegedly. And, like, we're just basically going with his narrative because, or going against his narrative, actually, because they don't believe it. So, yeah, man, it's like, there's also cross-contamination because people were touching the gloves and all that type of stuff, or the bullet shells in the car, and, like, weren't changing their gloves, like, in the first couple of weeks. And there's no clear and concise story of what happened and what took place. Everything, like I said, is circumstantial and mostly based on hearsay of what sounds logical. Anyways, man, appreciate you for watching this video. Jared the Star, I'm gone.